Hey everyone, this is Anikit with the Power of Storytelling, and today with us we have Michael Staffeldt. Hey Michael, thank you so much again for doing this interview with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I think you have one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard, man, and I guess we'll dive into that a little bit later, but I wanted to start by kind of talking about when you were younger. So can you talk a little bit about your family and some of your childhood experiences and how it's shaped who you are today?
I'm like, where do I begin? Well, I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, border town, for those of you who don't know, on the border with Mexico, in New Mexico. My mother is Mexican and German, and my father is mostly German. Um, so I have, kind of a mixed ethnic background there, and I think that that goes for a lot of us from El Paso. I think El Paso is a great melting pot of cultures, and I'm really grateful to have grown up there. My classmates were very diverse, and my friend group as well. So, which that it I think it's one of the most valuable things to grow up with a diverse set of friends, especially nowadays. You can see the value in that every day in the news. Um, that's my background growing up. But as far as family, it gets a little more complicated. Uh, my parents, my dad actually had two kids with his first wife. So I have two older half brothers. We don't really call them half brothers. They're just my brothers. So, that just goes to show how tight my family is. Um, and then my dad and my mom had my brother and my younger brother and myself. Um, my older brothers grew up a large part of their life separately. So one grew up in Wisconsin with his mom, and the oldest brother grew up in El Paso with my dad. And so when my dad met my mom and had me and my younger brother, we kind of grew up with the older brother, but the oldest brother. But the second oldest was still kind of like, you know, far removed in Wisconsin. Like where the heck where the heck is he? We saw him maybe once every. I remember there was a period where I hadn't seen my brother for 6 years. And as a kid, it's not good, I don't think, to grow up without your siblings, like knowing that you have a sibling out there and that you don't really know. Um, it's kind of hard to deal with. So that was that situation. Um, my parents actually ended up getting divorced when I was 3 or 4 years old, shortly after my youngest brother was born. That was, I remember, that was a very difficult time, but we got used to it, and for most of our lives, we grew up kind of going back and forth between households. My dad was a lawyer, very educated. His dad was a microbiology professor at New Mexico State University. So there was this expectation of education that kind of was passed down through my father's side of the family. My mom, um, she actually got her bachelor's degree when my younger brother and I were growing up. And if I remember correctly, I believe my dad actually paid for her to go through college. Um, in her family, it wasn't normal for, I hate to say this, but I think it wasn't normal for the women to go to college. My grandma, um, My grandma, I don't even think graduated from high school. So she went to an all Catholic girls school, and it was discovered that her and my grandpa, they got pregnant when they were young, and so the school found out about that, and she wasn't actually able to graduate. If I remember correctly, she may have graduated, but she may not have been allowed to walk. But she didn't go to college, although she's very well read and well spoken. Um, that was kind of the society that they grew up in. But lucky for me, both of my parents did end up having college degrees. My mom has been a social worker for 15 years, and I think that really, seeing the people that she worked with and the children she worked with. She worked with the El Paso Center for Children for the longest time, the Child Protective Services as well. She ran the runaway shelter at the El Paso Center for Children, and she worked primarily with sex trafficked young girls. And on the border of El Paso and Juarez, Mexico, sex trafficking is a huge deal, and it's something that I think not a lot of people are aware about. Maybe because it's such like a dirty word, but she's been immersed in that world and just taking care of people, specifically minors, for decades. And I think I really get my ability to empathize with people and their stories from her, because you just have to have an open mind, and you just have to um, take care of people when you're in that situation. So she really taught me how to take care of people. Um, my dad really instilled in me the value of education and hard work, and to this day, I'm grateful for that. Unfortunately, he battled with his own problems. He I want to say he was probably an alcoholic since he was in college. Uh, a functioning alcoholic for the longest time, but not functioning. In as I grew older and older, I began to realize that, okay, there's a problem here. He would, he'd get angry about the littlest things, and money became a problem. And when money became a problem, and you're an alcoholic, you tend to drink your sorrows away, and alcohol costs money. So more money is going into that, and less into food and paying the bills. So I remember moving from house to house, not because we were we were growing financially, but because we kept getting evicted because we couldn't make rent. So from the time I was born to the time I was 18, we probably lived in 12 different houses in El Paso. um, and that's, I hate moving. Now I'm really good at it. I know how to pick up and move quickly, but God, I hate it. Um, so that was, yeah, and along with that, with money problems, you ask yourself, okay, how did you get into money problems, and how do you solve them? Well, my dad kind of tried to put a band-aid on a lot of those problems, by borrowing money from his friends and others, money that he oftentimes couldn't pay back, which landed him in jail a few times. So I witnessed my dad get arrested several times, cops coming to our door, um, debt collectors calling all the time. I actually remember as a child, and I think I told your brother this the last time I saw him. There was one time I distinctly remember my dad. It was like after school. We had just eaten dinner, and the cops come to our door, and they're knocking on it, and my dad's in his bedroom, and I said, "Dad, there's some police here." And he said, "You need to tell them that I'm not here unless you want me to go to jail." So I had to lie to the cops as, a 13-year-old, in order to protect my dad. But, I, what else do you do? It's my dad, the guy that's always looked out for me and taken care of me, even though he's had his own problems. But, you know, uh, I had to put myself in some pretty compromising situations many times in order to protect my dad's freedom, essentially, which ultimately I wasn't able to protect. He, yeah, when I was in college, senior year of college, he unexpectedly passed away, and it was up for speculation as to how that happened. My mom went and checked on him. In the end, actually, he and my mom became very good friends, which that just goes to show you how loving of a person my mom is, and how forgiving. No matter what happened, she was always there for him. So, but unfortunately, she showed up to his house after 2 or 3 days of not hearing from him. None of us had heard from him, and he was comatose on the couch. And it appeared that he had just drank himself to death. And I, wondered for the longest time whether it was a contemplated suicide or whether it was an accidental suicide. And I know my dad, and I think it was an accident. I think he was depressed. He was struggling with a lot of things. And yeah, I think it was an accident. And it's been 6 years now. I've forgiven him. I know he never lived with regrets, but I'm I'm yeah, it's going through, a childhood like that, and then the culmination of a tragic death of you know, what used to be the smartest, greatest, most inspiring person, your hero, essentially. Um, it has shaped me into who I am, a large part of who I am. And I think the main takeaway from all these experiences has been resiliency. Just, when life gets you down, you have a couple of ways to respond. You can either stay down, or keep digging yourself further down, because hey, I've got, I'm already down here, I might as well spiral. And I've seen a lot of my friends do that as well. Or you can respond positively and use it to your advantage. So I decided to use all of these experiences, and I think I continue to do that today, to use my experiences to my advantage. Tragic and hard experiences are what, sometimes, if you're able to use that to your advantage, you will become stronger than anyone around you. um so that's a little bit about my childhood. I think that's the, you know as if you're listening to this, sometimes life gets you down, but you got to keep going. You've got to use that as a tool. um and it's difficult sometimes, but that has really helped me, that kind of mindset. um so yeah.
And and you talk about like resilience, and I know that you've told me before that you really found that that resilience through music, and you're now a musician, a DJ, a producer, And can you talk a little bit about kind of the road you took to get there and your experience learning viola and through
Yeah.
school and everything?
Yeah, sure. So, I started on viola in the 5th grade in public school, and I just kind of, I'm the kind of person that I really like solving puzzles and playing games. So I treated the viola as kind of a puzzle, like every piece of music or every technique was a puzzle to unlock. And so I kept just solving the puzzles, right? Every day was like a new puzzle. Um, and that's all I cared about was like solving the problems, solving the puzzles. And eventually, people around me started telling me like, wow, you're really good and you should keep doing this. I wasn't trying to get good. I was just trying to have fun and immerse myself in something that was interesting. Um, so I started getting better, and I listened to my peers, and especially to my dad and my mom and my teachers. These people that respect you. If they're encouraging you to continue with something, they probably know something, right? They're probably right. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to these people. I'm gonna keep playing the viola. Um, and in high school, I was good, right? Freshman year. But there were a couple of people that were better than me. And it was, pretty, I think it was subjective, but ultimately I think it was an objective truth that I wasn't the best. Um, Now this is where a turning point came. So my sophomore year, um, my dad goes to jail for 6 months. He ended up working in the kitchen, which brought his sentence down to 5 months. So he was able to get out uh, in 5 months. But during that time, you know, my dad was paying child support to my mom. My mom was a social worker, not making much money, and she had to support and feed myself and my younger brother, and pay rent, right, on a social worker's salary. So when my dad goes to jail, we end up having to move out of our house with our mom, and we moved in with one of her friends. So we lived with her friend, who is a judge in El Paso, and her younger daughter. So there's 5 of us in this house now, and my dad's in jail. We can't afford our own house now. We've got to share it with these people, and I'm just like, what is happening to my life? So I dove further and further into music, really as an escape from reality. And the more I played music and the more time I spent on it, the better I felt about myself and my situation. Um, I could feel myself getting better and better. And sure enough, sophomore year, I auditioned for the Texas All State Orchestra, and miraculously I made it, and I made it every year after that, sophomore, junior, and senior year. And so sophomore year really was the turning point for me musically, where I realized like, okay, I can be one of the best. And I can do this if I really set my mind to it. But what it took was really these like tragic occurrences in my life, and how I responded to them. I responded to these life events, these challenges, with hard work and just immersiveness, just surrounding myself with the music all the time. Um, and I dove into my schoolwork as well, which was it worked to my advantage. But yeah, I ended up going to college for viola performance, although I was accepted into several Ivy League schools, and because of my family's income, I would have received full full tuition paid to those Ivy League schools. I was passionate about music and still am to this day. Um, and I wanted to study music. I wanted to really immerse myself in this world, and so I decided to go to this small college in Rochester, New York, called the Eastman School of Music. um, which, that's where I met your brother, our freshman year, and he and I have been best friends ever since. um, I graduated from there, and after that, I was really jaded, actually, by the classical conservatory kind of top down. If you're not the best, you're just not going to make it mentality. So I took a little break from viola just to kind of catch my breath again, after studying it so intensely and studying music so intensely. I completed an internship at Remote Control Productions, which is the film composer Hans Zimmer's business. I don't know if you know Hans Zimmer. He scored tons of films: Pirates of the Caribbean, The Lion King, Gladiator, Interstellar, the Dark Knight series. Um, you know, wait, what is the Superman one? I forgot that film. um, he's done a lot of films, and I, film music was actually what got me interested in music to begin with. Just watching movies as a young kid, the music always moved me more than anything, and I think that internship really changed my perspective on the kind of background that you can have as a musician and just as a person in general. At that studio, there's anywhere between 35 to 50 composers in their studios at any time, and all of them come from different backgrounds. Some of them come from traditional Middle Eastern backgrounds, or Indian backgrounds. Some of them were DJs. Hans Zimmer, he got his start playing in a punk band. Um, but I think the people that really spoke out to me were these electronic musicians, and Hans Zimmer is well known for using electronic instruments in his film music. Um, and so I looked into the backgrounds of these people, like what kind of backgrounds do they have, and I found that a lot of them, were electronic music producers and DJs at some point. And actually, my older brothers introduced me to electronic music and this whole world of DJing, the club life, the rave scene. It's just, it's so exciting, being in those environments and listening to this type of music. It can be very reflective, and explorative, which really caught my attention. So I started teaching myself how to um, produce music, not just play the viola anymore. And then yeah, I purchased some Technics, saved up some money, purchased some Technics 1200 vinyl turntables, taught myself the basics of spinning vinyl, um, and then was producing electronic music all at the same time. And eventually I started realizing, after, again, my life mentors and adults in my life were telling me, you can't give up on the viola. You're too good at it. And so I listened to them, and I started working picking up the viola again, but this time in my own style. Trying to find my own musical voice. And so now my challenge is working all of these skills that I've acquired into one package or a few packages. And now I'm producing music, and performing with live with viola. And so one of my performances recently here in Austin um, was a it involved me vinyl DJing, um, as well as digital DJing. But I also played synthesizer and live viola all in one continuous set, and it was just me on stage. I put a lot of work into that, and that's what it takes. It takes a lot of work, but when you take the time to reflect on what you're good at, on the skills that you've acquired, even on what you think you're good at. That's sometimes just as good as actually being good at something, is thinking that you're good at something. Um, and when you put all that together, you can do amazing things. Um, yeah, and I truly believe that all of us have skills and talents that we may not even know we have. And I would advise anyone that's listening to really take some time. And by time, I mean, like, it could take hours to reflect about these things. For me, sometimes it's taken years, months, or years to reflect on what is it that I'm good at. Um, and really putting all of these things together into something that you might be interested in doing. Um, and yeah, that's how I've gotten where I am. It's just self-reflection and diving into my different skills.
Yeah, I guess kind of my last question is like beyond all the awesome things that you've already talked about, you've had like so many cool experiences from you drove Uber for a little bit, you volunteered at an orphanage in Kenya, you taught high schoolers for a little bit, you're a musician and a live performer. Like what would you say is the biggest lesson from all these different experiences that you've learned? Just like boiling it down into one thing.
Hmm. Well,
You're also starting your own company now, all these amazing things.
so I would say, one, I'm an explorer. I'm always looking for new and exciting experiences. Um, and I think my background, my resume kind of kind of demonstrates that. But as you are exploring, as I was exploring, I always try to look for a learning experience, something valuable that I can take from this experience and apply to my own life or share with other people. Um, and I think every experience, no matter what it is, whether it's starting a company or getting evicted from your house as a child, there is always something to learn, and something valuable you can take away. It's just a matter of whether you want to find it, to see it. But the opportunities are always there. In whatever experience you have, there's always opportunity. Um, and so yeah, I'm a very kind of go with the flow kind of person. The dean of my college, at our graduation, he made an analogy um, to life. He is a sailor, and if you're a sailor, you know that you can never go from point A to point B in one direct line. You use the wind to kind of guide you in that general direction. And so I've always remembered that, and I've tried to use that in my life. Just keep going in the general direction that you feel is right for you, but know that every experience, good or bad, has something valuable to offer.
That's awesome, man. Well, Michael, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I know that just in this short conversation, I've been inspired. I'm sure everyone listening has been inspired by your story. And I wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Aniket. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.